Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day 3 of the Eurocontrol Network Manager User Forum Week, managing your operations in uncertain times. My name is Stephen Moore, head of the ATM Network Operations Division here at Eurocontrol, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you and thank you for attending this afternoon. This slide shows the picture in the network yesterday, Tuesday, the 9th of February. I don't wish to dwell on the detail at all. You can note in the top corner there, 7,803 flights in the network yesterday. We all know the current situation. Out of interest, there hasn't been, as far as we can tell, a Boeing 737 MAX movement in Europe since October 2020. Yet today a test flight was conducted in and out of Brussels with a 737 MAX. And all I wish to do here is highlight to you the potential for swift and significant regrowth of the demand from where we are today to where we can be in the very near future. So today's User Forum Week event is very clearly focused on operations, your operations, our operations, what is coming and what concerns, feedback, questions and issues are out there for us all to consider. It was said on the first day of this user week that we all have a moral responsibility to work together to support all stakeholders in the network to help in every way possible, whatever and whenever a recovery comes. And this is what we are here this afternoon in support of collectively through the next 90 minutes or so. So today's session follows yesterday, given by my dear colleague Ras van Borkeroy, looking into planning operations with the shorter term seasonal rolling NOP and looking beyond the summer airspace changes, RADs and operational excellence. In all of this week, we bear in mind the proposal once again to keep delays in the network as close to zero as possible with the best possible trajectories. So to today, we're focusing very much this year on what's coming, and I'm delighted to introduce you to the structure of the next hour and a half or so. I'll be very pleased to introduce you shortly to our guest speakers from ANA Portugal and Lisbon Airport to give their view on managing operations in uncertain times from the perspective of our airport stakeholders, as well as their feedback on the network manager. We will then hear from my colleagues in Operations Division, Gianni Lenti, Bob Graham and Chris Peregrine, who will each update you on what's available, what's coming, and what we and our teams can do to help you. And then, most importantly, we turn to you, which brings me to the moderated panel element of this afternoon's event. Once those presentations I've referred to have taken place, we'll have the opportunity to address and discuss with you and the speakers who form the panel any feedback, questions or concerns you might have. We want your feedback. We want you to interact as best as you can on this Zoom platform. So how do you do that? Throughout the presentation, starting now, you can utilize the button at the bottom of your screen there, Q&A, to highlight and bring up your panel to ask questions, give your feedback, highlight your concerns, generally to get in touch with us. Please note that the chat box function, which is available as well, will not be monitored. So please don't send us messages through the chat box, use the Q&A. You don't have to ask a question to use the Q&A, you can just state some feedback or raise a concern. Please also, where you feel able, provide your organization name while submitting your question, or at the very least, type of organization if you wish to remain anonymous. Do please recall you can ask these or highlight anything in the Q&A panel from now onwards, so please do. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to the first presentation and to hand over to Chloe Lepere, the Chief Operating Officer of ANA Portugal, joined by her colleagues Francine and Rui. Chloe, my great thanks for joining us live. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, all. I don't know exactly from where you're connecting. Well, I hope you're not expecting me not to talk about COVID today. Of course, this is the major concern that we are experiencing at the moment in all the network. But I'm not going to talk only about COVID. I'm going to talk how we responded to the crisis, but also how we build resilience to COVID. Another option was to make a presentation about the beauty of Portugal and where you are going to fly to when this crisis is over, but I'm not allowed to do too much publicity. So I encourage to go to visitportugal.com and you are going to see and plan, I'm sure. So I would like to introduce two major actors of the plan that we have been developing these last months and that are heavily involved in the preparation of the next steps. So meaning the rebounds. Francine Corte-Real is the operation manager of Lisbon Airport. And I also asked Rui Alves in the quality of Lisbon Airport Director to help us answer to the questions you might have after this presentation. Well, this conference, just to introduce this conference, makes all sense to us since network managers' main objective is to increase network predictability. And well, we are in a world where all predictability has almost disappeared. Even the concept of historical slots having experienced some waiver for good reasons, but does not constitute anymore in 2021 a solid reference of what will for sure happen. So this is our main challenge, and how the network manager can help in increasing predictability in this time of low visibility is definitely an expectation on our side. And Steve was talking about the moral responsibility to work together to prepare for resilience. And I think this is a very good term to qualify what we have to do together. So in this high unpredictability context, I will present how we focused on maintaining performance at our airports in all ANA network, how we maintain quality and reviewed our organization to fit with the circumstances, while maintaining service continuity and preparing resilience. If you can go to the next step, to the next slide, yeah. So just a few elements of context. So ANA Portugal has been acquired by Vinci in 2013 within the framework of a concession scheme. There are 10 airports in the network, the three main ones being on the continent, Lisbon, Porto, and Faro. The civil terminal of Beja on the basis of a military airport, and airports located in Açores and Madeira, so in the islands. Our business areas are, or were, I would say, aviation areas, so the normal aviation areas of a concessionaire, dealing with airport operation, infrastructure development, etc., and extra aviation management as well. And I say where because during this crisis, finally, we had to deal with new competencies to develop new reactivity to the circumstances, and to change to a tactical approach, disinvolving even some responsibilities that, like sanitary measures, that we were not used to develop. Next slide, please. So there will be a first part talking about how we dealt with the crisis and how we are seeing the next challenges, and then I will leave the floor to a more daily operation feedback of coordination with the network manager to Francine. Next slide. So protection measure. Next slide, please. So, well, we had to change from a day to another to a tactical approach, as I said. So we had a very preventive process, reacting extremely early in the development of the pandemic, supporting the Portuguese government to develop a real-time response to a new set of changing regulations. And we have implemented these measures even before the publication of recommendations or guidelines coming from the industry and the associations, and afterwards adjusting when necessary. But in fact, the response that we have organized since the very first days of the pandemic was very aligned with all publications that have been issued then. Nothing particular to at this time to mention. I think all of this is very common to all of you. Maybe a special highlight on the innovation response we had to new cleaning processes, even going for automatic disinfection with robots of some areas, which were technologies that were more used in hospital environments. And the development of every possible contactless solution. Just to highlight one initiative was the remote control kiosk, check-in kiosk, that you can control from your mobile phone. We have identified very early in the crisis that there was a need to touch the less possible all the elements of the airport during the trip. So developing testing, developing temperature measurement has become our new daily obligation and responsibility. Next slide. So, and this early response, I would say, has been recognized, and yeah, I think it has been a fair reward of our efforts. We have been, for the first time, Lisbon Airport has been recognized as Best European Airport 2020 by SCI Europe, which is definitely a title that we had been hoping to get all these years, but we know that Lisbon is an old airport, and we were starting from a very complex situation. This has been our opportunity to show our reactivity, and it has been recognized also by a certification by the Tourism of Portugal and an audit, external audit by Bureau Veritas to confirm that our measures were the right ones. Next slide. So what we had to endure was the high traffic reduction. Next, please. And when we say high traffic reduction, we really changed from a day to another, from a very strong growing trend, which has seen the traffic multiplied by 2 since the beginning of the concession. So from 14 million passengers in Lisbon to 31 in 2019, to a reduction of 70% of our passengers in 2020. A little bit less on the movements side, minus 60%. The flights having been with lower load factors. So after being preserved at the beginning of the pandemics and resisting slightly better than the rest of Europe, especially in March, we have seen the traffic drop with a massive impact on the airport revenues. We are directly linked to the movements and passengers that are going through our airports. And we had to mitigate the economic impact, despite what you probably know is a highly fixed cost structure. So an airport is handling activities with infrastructures that are little flexible to scalability. And we had to preserve this sustainable economic situation and also to keep our capacity to invest. Next slide. So how we minimize the impact, we rationalized all our costs. We closed some areas. So we closed one of the 2 terminals of Lisbon. We closed some check-in areas, some lounge, baggage terminal sections, all areas possible to concentrate on all our efforts in efficient operations. We have redistributed the cleaning efforts also to be able to increase the level of efficiency. saying that we have mitigated the economical impact is a big word. So ANA's financial results are being issued today. So anyone interested can go and see. But what we have to understand is that there has been an enormous lot of effort to sustain the dramatic reduction that has arisen. Next slide. Next slide, please. So during this period, we have tried to concentrate on what was making sense to ensure the recovery of the activity when it would be the right time. We maintain the preventive maintenance plans in all critical activities. We maintain the planned investments that were critical also to increase our performance. So we have even accelerated some projects that were made easier to develop, like the renovation of Terminal 2 during this period of low traffic. We have built 2 rapid exit taxiways on Lisbon runway. So all these measures were taken to ensure resilience without compromising a rapid recovery. And we are starting in the next few days some heavy repair works in Porto as well, on the taxiway, on the main taxiway, to be able to use this period as an opportunity and not create a disruption in the traffic later when the activity is back. Next slide. Just to talk a little bit about human resource policy. So next slide, please. Of course, we have tried to preserve all activities that were absolutely necessary to ensure continuity, to have a mirror team and have teams in prevention to be able to ensure all key activities at any time. We optimized our processes, and I would say paradoxically that we exit. So we hope to leave this crisis with a better efficiency, because this was the best occasion for us, and I think for all stakeholders, to review their efficiency and to try to do more with less. We have not downsized our core staff to be able to maintain the levels of proficiencies necessary, and we have maintained the training everywhere it was absolutely necessary to ensure business continuity. Next slide. So now challenges. So uncertainty is still there, and more than ever, I think nobody was seeing the third wave of the epidemic as heavy as it is. In Portugal, this third wave has been particularly heavy. It's starting to improve in the last few days due to the lockdown that has been decided by the government at the end of January. But the crisis is definitely still there. So planning for summer 2021 is definitely a challenge. How we accommodate demand, and at the same time, how do we plan with ensuring social distancing and other sanitary measures? How we take into account the longer turnarounds that we have seen, that we have experienced due to new cleaning measures, crew shortage, and also handling shortage. Rapid changing in the national and international legislation. This has changed almost every week. More flexibility is required from us and from all stakeholders. How we are going to accommodate the 60 to 70% of traffic versus 2019, with peaks that could be even higher than this. The lack of visibility on summer 21 slot and the high level of cancellations expected also is an unknown parameter of this planning exercise. And of course, we are strongly dependent on knowing how TAP is going to plan on the short term and long term their network routes. So within this uncertainty, Francine is going to give more highlights about how we are working on a daily basis. We are, of course, keeping plans for the future, for the medium term and long term. It's actually a good occasion to say that we asked Eurocontrol to assess our structural capacity at Lisbon Airport to be able to start from a clear view of what's the potential capacity of the existing infrastructure. We have to take into account the new paradigm of travelers' expectation and to review our processes, taking into account the sustainable changes in passengers' behavior, including through innovations. We are including terminal analytics. We are working on seamless flow. We think this is part of the response to being flexible. And of course, we are rethinking our development plans in line with the sustainable environmental approach we see, which is our absolute priority, as you can see. So I said that we had been caught in the crisis in a very intense development phase, whether in terms of infrastructure or in terms of systems. So I will leave the floor to Francine Cortrial, that had to maintain with her team the same dynamics of development on a more tactical approach. She's dealing with operations preparation with the stakeholders and the network managers on a daily basis, and she will talk to you about how we prepare readiness for resilience. Francine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chloe. About the second part of this of the presentation, it's a short one. You can move the slide, please. We are talking about our daily operations. We didn't close. The airport did not close for just for a short period in Easter, decided by the government. So we kept our operations under safe and secure conditions, as we should. But how we are operating now, the challenge is it's not business as usual. Even when the traffic increased a little bit, we have to tailor our procedures. It's per airline, per country of origin, or required sanitary measures. Everyone has a different requirement, and the airport have already to adapt its business rules, how to allocate the resources, be it check-in counters, be it boarding gates, etc. We try to avoid, as everyone in every stakeholder has lowered their staff or the present, at least they are minimizing their presence at the airport. We decided to start a pre-ops and post-ops analysis, but the pre-ops analysis is what you see in this picture. It's a very simple, we share it every week for the following week with all the stakeholders, and we highlight the peak hours where every subsystem may have a crunches, some kind of crunches, so they can foresee and adapt their resources to minimize them, to minimize any constraints. As well, we created a customer experience team to help to manage the terminal flow and to help the passengers as well, helping them to not feel that unhappy at the airport and and to have a safety feeling that someone is caring of us. For instance, now they have to wait at the airport for the results of the tests whenever they arrive without tests, and this team is there and even has tablets asking them, showing them the menu of the restaurant, so helping them to, for instance, to decide what meal they can order. So this team is doing a great job, and we are happy about it. Next slide, please. The ongoing projects, well, we continue to work as well in the projects that were ongoing, or we have started some, taking the opportunity that we could have time to think about a few questions. We have an ongoing initial airport operations plan, and combined with the tool to assess the runway performance and capacity. We have already a few KPIs and are creating a dashboard with an overview of all the major, the most important information it's required to manage operations and to make these decisions on time. We continue to work to transform our AOCC into an APOC. And we took the opportunity to rethinking the processes, as Chloe mentioned, to adapt them, to foresee what is expected in the future, what are the operations of the future, what is expected from airport operations officer, for instance, or someone that is working in operations. If airports go as ground coordinators, which tasks are necessary, which skills do our people need to have? So we have done this work, and now it's being transformed in a training plan. But for that, maybe we would require Eurocontrol and check, at least from your training center, if there are some training, or if in the future you will be helping to design some training for airports, following this concept of ground coordinator, and we would be very happy to help as well to design it. Next slide. Well, our relationship with the network manager. Next slide, please. We always had a very good cooperation, I should state it. Personally, I've started a few years ago with the ACDM team, but with Visit B2B, with the technical, and now with the AOP, everyone provides us a wonderful cooperation. What we expect and what we get, we need support on in daily operations, exchanging information on capacity, if we are dealing with capacity problems due to weather disruptions or to whatever reason. We provide information on diversion capabilities whenever we have space, because we used to be a constrained airport, even regarding parking space, and whichever CDM issues that could arise. We have had and still continue, and we are willing to maintain support in the projects. ACDM and Lisbon is participating in the coordination task force, and as well as the PI, the Technical Forum Task Force, our people used to attend. And the IOP implementation that we have started now, and it seems that we will be having a very good cooperation to move the project forward. We provide information to the performance review unit or to CODA, and for the network managers and the ACI punctuality dashboards. The information we provide it will be important when ACI could publish the airport punctuality, which sometimes is different from the airlines' punctuality values. As well, we provide information to the airport corner, be it long or short-term activities, and the impacts we can foresee about our activities. Well, we are now foreseeing this concept of ground coordinator and the developing roles and responsibilities on this. We believe that the close coordination between airports and network manager and all stakeholders is expected. And then you can just click, please. And that's it. It's a challenge. We believe that airport and all the stakeholders, FMP and the MOC, they need we need a change in, also it's a cultural change. We are used to deal directly, locally. Our airport staff is not used to pick the phone and contact the NMOC. Usually it's FMP and the tower. It's not a problem if we can start changing the mindset. There are a few issues that are related to airports. Maybe it's easier if you contact us directly, or if we contact you directly. If we are foreseeing any trouble, we will be providing information through the airport corner. But I believe the way of we feel integrated in the network it's a common challenge. It's a common goal and a challenge to change our mindset and our culture in this regard. But so far, and as I started in this part, it's a good cooperation. I believe we'll be reaching good results. Next slide, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both Chloe and Francine. I'll just take 30 nanoseconds to point out that we have some questions already appearing in the Q&A. We will come to a moderated panel very shortly, but it gives me great pleasure to hand the podium and the microphone to Gianni Lenti from here at Eurocontrol. Gianni.
Thank you, Stephen. Bit strange to be in this room with no people, but it's comfortable to know that there are several hundreds connected. So again, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gianni Lenti. I'm the head of the Network Manager Operations Center, and I'm responsible for the services provided to the 43 air navigation service providers, members of Eurocontrol, airlines, and all the civil and military airspace users in general, and of course, the airports. So what are we doing here? We are simply discussing something, a word that is being used, and it will continue to be used in the next month, that is uncertainty. So there are uncertain times. Managing your operation in uncertain times is the title, but I guarantee you that we will present how we are responding with certain and effective measure when the traffic will rebound. So I'll start with the first slide that has been shown by our Director General on the first day. This is the traffic evolution from January 2020, and then a forecast of what can happen until June 2021. So as you can see, it was a bumpy road so far, minus 88% on April 2020, and then again with a slight climb, and summer with the minus 54 as the best record, and then the traffic is declining again because of the second wave of the pandemic. So what you see after January, there are two options. One is the optimistic one, that is the green, and the second one, of course, is the pessimistic. The one recorded until the 4th of February is already above the optimistic one. We are incurable optimists, so although it will be a bumpy road that will depend mainly on a number of variables, we are confident that the traffic may be better of the green line. Anyway, Madame von der Leyen stated a few days ago about the 400 million doses of vaccine that will be deployed until June, 50 million delivered in January and February, in March 55 million, and 300 in April, May, and June. So that will mean that 200 million could be vaccinated by the end of July. And so again, being an incurable optimist, I think that the next summer, or at least until June, and then next summer will be above the levels that we have recorded so far, because the state restriction will be progressively removed when the fate of the passenger will come back and they will be allowed to travel. Because again, we want to take back our life, and that's a matter of fact. June, September, this is an exercise. It is a comparison between the possible traffic demand, and the simulation was run with an optimistic traffic that is 75% of the traffic of 2019. And it was run versus the summer sector configuration that is at the moment provided by the air navigation service providers. We may even have more traffic than 75%. We all hope, and as it has been said by Chloe, it is quite obvious that we may have peaks of close to 100% of 2019 traffic, or even more, particularly at airports that are affected by holiday traffic. So this is the result. This is all Europe. And the result that you see here is the green is represented no issues in the sense that the number of sectors en route are necessary, are adequate to accommodate up to 75% of the traffic. The yellow and the orange and the red, of course, represent the problems in terms of ATFM delay. So the red areas in Reims and Karlsruhe and Bremen are likely to be subject to some delay, but we don't expect much. We'll see why. So obviously, this is a forecast. As every forecast may not be precise, but the rolling plan that is published weekly is helping a lot to all the network to understand what will be the amount of traffic that we have to expect in the next 6 weeks. It is quite obvious that approaching the summer, and with the help of the aircraft operators and the NSPs communicating us the data, information, their planning, of course, the forecast will be much more precise. So 6 weeks before the operation, we will know what will be more or less the exact traffic that will be affecting airports and en route sectors. And in case of problems, we will be able anyway to find adequate measures. So we are setting the scene. And what I can say, what I feel to say, that the staffing level in the Network Manager Operations Center is not far away from the level of 2019. So we are pretty confident that we will be able to tackle any situation that can happen in the network. Again, we had a few departures, but we had also new people recruited. And anyway, we will be able to cope because whatever it will happen, en route should not exceed 75%. And even in case that will happen, we will be able to cope that anyway. The close collaboration with stakeholders is strengthening, particularly with the airports. So we are still working with integration of the airports in the network, and but we have a solid relationship with the NSPs and with airspace users. So again, we are completely fit to tackle whatever traffic increase that we may face. Again, sufficient capacity in the network should be there to accommodate the traffic demand. Personally, and we wouldn't like to see too many delays due to capacity, of course. Anyway, we don't have a strategic, somebody remembers the 4 ACC in 2018 and in the ENM in 2019, both were massive plans rerouting hundreds and in some cases several hundreds of traffic around the bottlenecks en route in order to smooth the ATFM delay. Just to remind, in 2018, we have recorded 26 million minutes of the ATFM delay. In 2019, slightly above 21 million. So that is a lot. Of course, we had staffing issues and other problems. What we expect for the summer, that the ATFM delays shall be visible only and experienced when we have bad weather, system failures, strikes, or unplanned staffing issues. So, Rad, I love the Raffaele Rolle presentation yesterday when it was saying, he repeated 4 times, it was written, RAD is the pain. The route availability document is a pain. So today we have more RAD measures than traffic in the network. But anyway, it is true that RAD contributed strongly to facilitate the traffic in the past, but now we are going towards a new era. And the network manager started several months ago to invite the NSPs, the service providers, to reduce the RAD restriction. At the moment, there are less 1,000 RAD restrictions in the network, and they will be, apparently, there was an agreement to keep disabled until June. So I invite all the NSPs to continue keep these disabled RAD measures until September. So that means that the traffic will not be more than 75, 80% in the best case. So there is no reason to keep this RAD restriction and allow the aircraft operators to fly the most efficient routes and also with an eye to the CO2. We will run a dynamic RAD trial during the summer 2021. That means in the pre-tactical, the day before the operation, we will coordinate with the NSPs the disable of other RAD restrictions that may be then uptaken by the aircraft operator in order to shorten their route. So as an MOC, of course, we will play our role. Then take into account that the traffic could be up to 75% compared to 2019. We don't expect, obviously, I say it again, massive overloads en route at the airports or at least due capacity. So that means that we don't apply anymore. We don't need to apply anymore long ATFM regulation capturing all the flights, but we need just to, for all those who are confident with the meaning of STAM, short-term ATFM measure, we will maximize and will invite in the ops room the use of the mandatory cherry picking for en route and airport cherry picking. So that means taking out a few flights from the bottleneck, that may be the en route sector or the airport, and just give a delay only to 5 or 6 flights, and anyway, the safety is granted. I just remind you that the primary role of the NMOC, the Network Manager Operations Center, is to grant safety. And then as a side activity is to reduce the delay that are generated by the bottlenecks. So less standard ATFM regulation and use more the cherry picking, and we will do that for all summer. It's not only about, of course, flow management, there is also the efficiency, the part of the routes. We have the e-help desk, we have the airport function, we have the weather trial, and my colleagues will talk about that after me. We will maximize the use of the RRPs, the rerouting proposals. We have staff in the ops room, that is the AOLO and the IFPS staff, flight planning staff, that will work during the summer to offer efficient routes during the day of operation and try to offer a rerouting whenever an aircraft operator is subject to a strong ATFM delay that may hamper the rotations during the day. So this will be an activity that will be more and more boosted during the summer. We have a new thing, the Flight Efficiency Task Force just established is an interdivision task force that has also operational people, the aircraft operator liaison cell, and people from the operational planning. So this is going to offer to aircraft operators through a specific tool, better routes, efficient routes with an eye to CO2. So we will not wait for the phone calls or the mails that you can send to nm.fe taskforce@eurocontrol.int or the phone numbers. We have also a proactive role. These people are already looking at the city pairs in order to, at the main city pairs in order to find the best possible optimal routes that are taken into consideration the route cancellation and offer them to the aircraft operator. We are already doing that. And of course, I believe that this activity will be much more important during the summer. So, what is the goal? Last year, we asked for 0 delay. With that level of traffic, sorry to say that, but this is, it would be a scandal to, I'm not afraid to use this word, to have millions of minutes of TFM delay. That will not be the case. The traffic will be lower than 2019. And I welcome the word again of Chloe that she mentioned no downsizing of the core staff. This is quite important and I'm happy to see that. So that means that we need the help of the NSPs, of the airspace users, of the CFSPs, of the militaries and the airports in order to achieve that. It's a 0 delay, 0 ATFM delay. This is the main target that we are bound to during the summer, but we need to work all together. So my plea to the NSPs, to the air navigation service provider is to please update the sector configuration constantly into our system. We need to predict the traffic, not only 6 weeks, but the day before operation and during the day operation. But in order to do that, we need to have a clear picture of how many sectors you can open today or tomorrow. And then we have to confront that with the traffic in order to make the best possible demand capacity balancing and definitely then go for measures. So anticipating the problem is the key to avoid the ATFM delay. Last minute things reported to network manager or sector configuration changes will be quite detrimental for the ATFM delay. So please, 3 hours before, if it is a known problem, call us, report us what is going to happen, and then we'll be together, we'll build the plan together. Airspace users, this is an old story. File the flight plan in due time. So we need at least to have your flight plan into our IFPS system at least 4 hours before the departure time, before the OBT. And then most important, if you have filed a flight level, specific flight level, if you file a specific geographical profile, fly what you file. Do not derogate, do not go away from what you have committed with the network manager and with the stakeholders by filing a specific flight plan. So, and then of course, if for some reason you need to update the OBT, please do it. Don't be afraid of doing it. Just in case you receive a bad delay from the automated system, from the CASA system, from the flow management system, you still have the option to mark your flight that as a bad delay is a critical flight, and we will do whatever it takes in order to reduce that delay in coordination with the NSP and to make you fly in the best possible and efficient way and to complete your rotations. The general aviation and business flights. Please respect the airport slots. If you go to a doctor, if you want to take appointment to the doctor gives you an arrival time at 1600 the visit. If you arrive 2 hours earlier, you will not be visited by the doctor. So that's the airport slot. If you commit to buy a slot at the airport, particularly at the airports with a high summer demand because of the holiday, there will be a high summer demand for specific holiday airports in the southern of Europe, for sure. So please depart on time, respect the CTOT if you have one, and respect the airport slots, because otherwise that may result in or the suspension of the flight or in a worse delay or worse on the cancellation of the airport slot for the future. It may happen. So use the airport corner. It was mentioned by Francine, so I'm quite happy that this is taken on board. The relationship and the integration of the airport passes always from the flow of information that you are able to provide us. The airport corner is a very good tool to inform us in advance of capacity shortfalls or whatever it may happen at your airport. Please do that, or raise the phone and call directly the NMOC. I also mentioned Francine because of the fact that the relationship between the NMOC and the airport shall change. Indeed, the FMP we're mediating so far, we are ready to have direct contact with the airport and then coordinate whatever measure it has been applied. It needs to be applied together with the airport directly, bypassing the FMP, but keeping the FMP in the loop. I totally agree with that. And I would like to conclude just saying that I am personally, and we are all here, confident that the traffic will be back. After so many years of experience in the network, it was up and down, up and down. There were bad moments of traffic downturns, but it's an historical, this is our World War II, it will pass. The vaccine will be deployed. The trust of the passenger will come back, because that's what we definitely need to recover the situation and going back to the traffic of 2019 or even more. So I'm right confident that next summer, things will be much, much better. And I conclude with this wish to everybody, and thank you very much for your attention. I now hand over to Bob Graham, that should be online. Bob.
Yes, thank you very much, Gianni, and good afternoon from Eurocontrol Airports. I'm Bob Graham, head of the airport unit. Now, building on Gianni's reference to Airport Corner, I'd like to thank all our airports for contributing with your information. So going forward, to support airlines and airports, it really is critical that you continue to do this, especially at this moment in time when we've got some really specific severe weather, which is damaging operations at airports. And it's a particular time, this time of year, so please keep that up to date. So thanks again. Now, with the theme of supporting airports and moving towards summer 21 and looking further ahead, NM will again implement the airport function, as mentioned by Gianni. And this is a direct support to airports, specific to airport operations centers, or the ground coordinator, as ACI terms it. And it's a service that we will provide in two parts, one which is pre-tactical, and the other part, the tactical service. So please click. The pre-tactical will focus on identification of issues, and preparation of solutions, in collaboration with the airports and the FMP positions. And where possible, if we can identify a mitigation, that'll be put in place before the day of operation. Otherwise, the solution will be coordinated with the airports and the network manager, and if needed, the FMP for action on the day of operation. Now, looking at the actual tactical service, that will be provided from the NMOC itself, supporting airports that are identified as having capacity and delay issues on the day of operations. And special emphasis, again, will be given to those seasonally challenged small airports, as we've done in the past, for example, the Greek islands, or last year, Cannes Airport. So the function anticipates with a view to mitigating problems such as traffic outliers, or as Gianni said, the airport cherry picking. And if there's a solution that is identified, it'll be coordinated either with an airline or with the airports themselves. And this hopefully will improve things as we go forward in the summer. One of the more important things, though, will be to look at actually challenges that come up because of COVID itself. So if an airport is experiencing any COVID issues, for example, passenger terminal capacity, which might be impacted by spacing measures required by the government, that could generate turnaround and delays impacting the network. So those can be discussed with NM to identify traffic flow solutions. So the function operational improvement, operation instruction will be promulgated via the NOP with the phone and email contact details. I expect that to go out sometime in May. Let's go to the next slide, please. So again, continue to look ahead. Some new capabilities we expect in 2021 with specific support to airports. Now, these would include a pre-tactical briefing trial, passenger demand predictor, and increased airport connectivity. So the pre-tactical briefings will provide airports with a daily D-1 analysis covering likely network impact on airport operations, including weather information, predicted demand and capacity imbalances, and arrival delays. Now, these briefings will initially be tested with a number of airports, and if all go well, as we refine these messages and start to go live with the majority of airports that are connected to the network before the end of this year. Please click. Now, one of the challenges we had in the recovery last summer was the number of schedules that get published and then cancelled at the last minute when there are no passengers wanting to fly. And this creates a lot of uncertainty around the schedules and passenger demand. And to try and reduce that uncertainty, we will deploy something called a passenger demand predictor to airports. Now, the goal of this is to reduce demand volatility during recovery. It's using readily available online passenger data services to predict a daily passenger demand and a daily peak period hotspot, hopefully reducing uncertainty on expected demand. And that will be provided in a protected way to each airport that wants to have that service through a password activated system online. Please click. Now, again, moving into later into 2021, we're also hoping to see that we'll have further ACDM and advanced ATC tower connections to the network. And also we expect at least 2 airports to have their first initial airport operational plan integration, which will be a huge achievement as we start to move forward into the integrated airport plan, integrated network operations plan period. We'll also extend our small airport connectivity. That's going to build on the trials that we've been holding in the Greek island airports recently. So these activities are part of a wider strategy of NM to provide timely information service to airports. And we're looking at, from an NM perspective, 95% coverage of departures in an NM area within the next 5 to 7 years. Please click. So please note, we plan a summer 21 NOT briefing for airports on Wednesday, the 14th of April. That'll be done in collaboration with ACI, and invites will be sent out through the AOT, ACI, and other portals. Now we'll move on to Chris to hear what's new from his side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. My name is Chris Peregrine. I'm the head of our operations analysis service, and I'm also acting head of our integration and business continuity unit, which gathers business requirements and ensures that our software releases run as smoothly as possible from a business perspective. I'd like to spend a little bit of time outlining some of the functionalities that we have new for this summer from a technical perspective. Many of them are in line with our strategic objectives that Razvan outlined yesterday, but more importantly, they're aimed at making your lives as network users much easier. The first one I'd like to introduce is our NMP Flight, our Network Manager Portal for Flight. This is aimed primarily at aircraft operators to provide, as far as we can, a one-stop shop for them. It combines the separate systems that we have currently into one redesigned web-based application. We've consulted very closely with the end users. Many airlines have contributed to this, and it essentially redesigns and re-engineers some of our flight lists. It creates an information hub with access to important and frequently used information, routing restrictions, slots, routing opportunities, maps, airspace, and various other data. We have also integrated into this the direct access to the eHelp desk, which allows for requests for slot swaps, delay improvements, etc., straight from this application. What will that do for you? What that will do for the user is give a much improved, should I say, user experience, and make all the important information that you use most often accessible straight away. Looking a bit further on, we're looking at the full implementation of our integrated digital ATFCM platform, better known and much easier to say as IDAP. This really is an expansion of our current eHelp desk facility, leveraging new B2B technologies that have come available to enable all of our stakeholders, so we're talking FMPs, airports, airlines, etc., to propose, to coordinate and to apply various flight and flow measures, regulations, critical flights, as Gianni mentioned, and all of the existing eHelp Desk functionalities. Again, what does this mean for you? Well, it means it will significantly reduce processing times for these requests. It will make it more straightforward for you to make the requests. It will reduce the number of phone calls and improve your workflow for all of the network actors involved. Integration of space-based ADS-B data. We have starting to integrate that data now into our operational systems. This is going to increase the accuracy of aircraft positions, or give us, should I say, increased accuracy of aircraft positions outside of the network, outside of the boundaries of our network, within 3 hours, and also for some traffic within 6 hours. This is going to give a much better entry time prediction, and we will also be able to distribute more and more accurate flight data messages to external systems. So we're looking here at an overall improvement in predictability. We're also introducing this summer in our release some, let me just get my paperwork there. So following requests from many member states, we're introducing more functionalities for our advanced flexible use of airspace program. This includes allowing more flexibility for airspace management cells in airspace reservations outside of the standard parameters, so outside of normal vertical limits or time limits. It also introduces some management of restrictions as a group. There are other functionalities as well, and all in all, the package will again look at reducing workload and give a better overview of applied restrictions and help operators avoid where necessary. And then lastly here, we're looking towards airport and network integration. Again, using B2B technology, we're increasing the number of fields this year for B2B message exchange. And we're also looking to improve the off-block time update service, the estimated off-block time service, should I say, for ACDM departures, which is aimed at improving the TOBT, the target off-block time accuracy. Again, these changes allow for better information exchange, but they will reduce errors and, of course, therefore, workload. Of course, I've only given a brief overview here because it is quite a complex set of functionalities. So for those that wish for more details, we have our release notes there via that link. It's on our website, and also there will be a release webinar available to users on the 2nd of March. Okay, moving on now, I'd like to give an outline of our cross-border weather procedure. We're continuing and expanding that. As you can see from the animation there, it is over the past 3 or 4 years, it has gradually expanded in cooperation with our partners, EU METNET, who have been providing the forecast for this summer cross-border convective activity procedure. We're now including this summer Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Hungary. We will be planning at day -1. We will also collaborate on the day of operation, updating our plans. Of course, this procedure really concentrates on the summer, and it really concentrates on convective activity. But we also have the Smart Weather Task Force, which is part of the Operational Excellence Program that Razvan outlined yesterday. They have been working very closely with airports, Bob Graham's unit, where Theodora, who's in charge of this particular program, has been working very hard to look at how we can incorporate airports and airport weather into operational practices. So we're looking at introducing best practices, and they're being identified as we speak, and will be introduced or released or reported on, should I say, in April. And then, of course, we actually need to get some of this into operation. So we're looking to integrate the recommendations from this report into the current cross-border procedure, so that when that summer procedure ends in October, then we will be continuing with airport procedures during the winter months. Okay, and finally, I'd just like to give a little bit of an outline of some of the activities that our operations analysis unit will be continuing with and developing. So we will continue to improve our use of data to lead our analysis. We've noted during the COVID crisis that there was a significant requirement for data, and everybody wanted the data now, or preferably yesterday. So we have we have built a dashboard that we use currently internally, although Some of you may have seen it on some of the Eurocontrol tweets that go out. And we will look to continue the development of that, enrich the data that's on there, make it available sooner, and hopefully make it available externally for people as a complement and not a replacement, as a complement to our aviation intelligence unit and the information that they send out. So we also will continue our lessons learning. This is something that we work very closely with all our stakeholders. We've recently had some lessons learning meetings with Madrid following the recent snow activity. We'll continue that. Whenever there are issues in the network, we try and establish what happened, look at it, analyze it, using data to do so with a view to improving our procedures. Similarly to the best practices mentioned in the previous slide as part of the operational excellence program, we also will be contacting airspace users, network users, ANSPs, airports and aircraft operators to establish some webinars. We want to try and get a database of best practices in post operations, and that's something we'll be doing over the summer. And then finally, we're only as good as the feedback we get. You've got our email address there. If you have an issue, if there's something that you want to improve, if there's some feedback you want to give, particularly as close to the operation as possible, please use that address and we will get back to you. Thank you very much indeed, and I'll hand you back to Stephen.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so now we turn to the feedback, questions and answers from the floor. And my thanks to those of you that have already submitted some questions in the chat. Just as a reminder, if you haven't yet worked out how to do it, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom panel that you're viewing this on, unless you're in YouTube, in which case you can just watch. And there you can submit your questions through Zoom and we'll pick them up. So my thanks to the speakers for all of their interjects so far and for their presentations. We're going to try and moderate this as best we can with regard to written questions coming in and incorporating as many of the panel as possible, whilst trying to obviously include as many of your questions as we go along. So you may forgive us for a bit of quick fingers on the microphones to ensure that the right person answers. So first up then, I see that we've quite a few questions around longer turnaround times due to COVID measures. There's a specific question here around are airlines also factoring this into their schedules, which is coupled to another one from Dave Bradley and Nats around the issues that may occur in airports with regard to border control capacity. So I'd like to start here. So the question I'll reformulate, and I'll go, if I may, first to our colleagues down in Portugal, perhaps Francine to start with. Are you aware, have you any visibility of increased turnaround times as a result of airlines changing their schedules? If not, how well paced are you to cope with sudden changes in that? And then I can come to my Eurocontrol colleagues. So Francine.
Well, we do not have much visibility on that. It's something that it's assessed on a daily basis. Some airlines told us they have increased cleaning procedures, so we could count on 10, 15 minutes plus. But they don't have as much passengers as before, so usually they are coping with the turnaround times. We do not have a bigger increase in turnaround times these days. Okay.
Thank you. And turning now, if I may, internally to Eurocontrol, Gianni, if I can come to you, the follow-on question then with regard to should we be regulating using ATFCM regulations assisting in the management of the process, i.e. dealing with capacity at the ground issues for airports?
Normally, we don't like to apply departure regulation because we think that the airport should handle them directly without passing through ATFM regulation. But should there be the need, we will be ready to apply an ATFM regulation, although it's not the primary. Let's say that it is the last resort, but if it's necessary, we will do it.
Thank you. Turning to volatility in schedules, which was mentioned previously, Roel Herdeman from MUAC has asked a question coming in with schedules cancelled only a few weeks with a look ahead. Given the volatility in passenger passenger demand? Is it expected that this will be more stable when we go into the summer schedules? Chris, can I turn to you first for that? And then I'll come over to ANA Portugal.
Hi, okay, thanks. Yeah, it is definitely an issue here, and the problem we have is of course that the schedules do tend to get cancelled quite quickly. So we do our best to incorporate it into all of the information that we have, and we'll make sure we get that out to you as quickly as we possibly can. We of course in the operations analysis will report where we see things not working out as well as we would like, and we will then be able to approach the particular areas and make sure that that particular hole is plugged.
Thank you. Bob Graham, we've been talking, I will come to Portugal in a second. We've been talking, Bob, about turnaround times. It might be a useful interjection from you with regard to the study that was done on the COVID turnaround times from the airport's perspective. Can you just offer an insight there?
Yes, thanks very much, Stephen. I think there's maybe a couple of points. We do track turnaround issues, and it's quite clear that there's a relationship to passenger load factor in terms of disembarkation and embarkation, but it's not been really significant at this stage. We did a study last summer which clearly showed that as the measures are put in place, the challenges of having enough space to actually ensure the social distancing between passengers, if it's a requirement, and not every state has required that of airports, but if it is in place, it does pose a problem. The model showed that as soon as you get to roughly about 60% of throughput of your 2019 traffic, and if you've got a significant load factor on the flights coming in, then you are going to have problems. So there is a sort of a point when those challenges start to arise. I just make one point. Our passenger demand prediction has actually been tested looking at some of the issues that have happened over the last couple of months with two airports, Madrid traffic and Amsterdam traffic. And if you look ahead 2 months, it does give a relatively good view. And as you get closer to the actual day of operation, you can see very quickly what's happening in terms of actually the passenger demand, and have a level of confidence in whether flights will actually operate or not. So I think there are some things that we put out there. These studies are disseminated through the NOT portal on the weekly rolling NOT update. So the information is there for people to look at. And on our website in Eurocontrol, the study from last year is actually available to be pulled down and looked at by stakeholders.
Thank you, Bob. If I can just remind of the question then regarding volatility in aircraft operators scheduling, and turn to Chloe or Francine, perhaps to consider a response with regard to the view from Portugal and Lisbon. Specifically, are you expecting a bit more stability as we get into the summer schedules?
We hope so. We hope so, also because as we are operating airports that were at capacity, so in 2019, 96% of the slots have been operated, of the available slots. So really we can talk about at capacity airports, same more or less the same in Porto. We having no visibility on what is going to be really operated is creating a risk that we maintain. So we maintain because the slots exist and have been officially maintained through the waiver, that these slots are not operated and prevent other operations from happening. So I can just say that we hope that there is more visibility on the cancellation rate to give us also more opportunity to plan, and maybe even to accept new traffic, because the volatility of the new trends is also a point that is a concern to us. So to be able to have a better view on the reality of what will happen is something that we hope, yes.
Thank you very much. This links to a question that Mike Borland has raised from NATS, looking at increasing the more enhanced data sets available for ANSPs and indeed other actors and stakeholders within the network once we return to more of a settled state. To help support planning in the short and medium term. Of course, we've got the seasonal rolling NOP, which is produced weekly. You'll be aware of that. And it is the intention, of course, to continue that for the foreseeable future to ensure that we have as much information available as early as possible. And as we get more stability, that will obviously be reflected through there. Gianni, I'll hand the microphone to you just on that particular point as well.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, the seasonal rolling plan helps a lot in the planning. I think it's an experience that we should continue even after the end of the pandemic. But to Mike, Mike, maybe you don't know that it was anticipated last year at the user forum. So we are quite advanced with the use of artificial intelligence in using predict data. I attended a meeting yesterday where you are a very good point. And now the job has to be in some way more precise to add the NAT tracks and all the rest. But I am confident that within 1.5 years, it's not an easy job. We will have much, much better data, much more reliable data already to use in Predict. Regarding the real flight plans, I again insist, and I see Razvan in front of the other side of the room here, that we should continue with the experience of the rolling plan because this is a very good source of data in order to make a strategic planning for the future. Then obviously, the day of operation, things may change, and we are anyway fit to tackle any possible issue that may occur.
Thank you. Razvan, would you just like to add as well to that?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. Just to confirm what Gianni has said, the seasonal rolling NOP is set there to be prepared until further notice. We are also intensively studying the possibility to expand the traffic outlook up to 8 weeks, but only when the traffic will start reaching some stability. Because at this point in time, it would be going beyond 6 weeks, it will not be reasonable to think that the demand data that we currently have would be sufficiently stable. But when we will return to more normal operations and schedules, this will be the case for sure. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Just coming to a question that was asked quite early on, actually, during the presentation from Lisbon. How did COVID impact ACDM performance at the airport, for example, TOBT quality and runway capacity utilization? Did you at Lisbon implement any additional measures to maintain the performance? And that came from Yanis in Amsterdam APOC. So Francine, I think you were talking mostly about it, so maybe I could turn to you first. How did the COVID situation impact the performance at Lisbon of ACDM, and did you do anything different as a result?
Okay, well, our process did not stop. The stakeholders continue to provide TOBT and to confirm TOBT. There were a few incidents that the aircraft did not provide TOBT and left without a TSAT, but pre-sequencing flights in some days back in April and May last year were not a problem. So it did not impact seriously. Sometimes it's difficult to find any problem or if the platform is working properly because there is no impact in the flow of the information. We did not have problems. We did not change procedures due to COVID. And I guess it's working well. I hope the network manager has the same idea as us.
Thank you. Bob, would you like to add anything to that point at this time?
Not specific. I guess the problem we have at the moment is in fact more for our new ACDM airports that are under trial at the moment, is having enough traffic to actually see regulations going through the system so we can sign them off. And I don't believe we saw any specific issues with the system. Traffic was low, there was very little regulation being used in it, therefore the ACDM system wasn't really being used, I think, to its full capacity.
Thank you. Okay, so changing the subject now then, a question coming in from Paul Nearing at IFATCA. Summer 2021 expectations of the traffic indicators we saw clearly from Gianni and yesterday's presentations from our colleagues as well. Could see traffic up to 75%, possibly, as Chloe referred, peaking much higher in various areas to 90 or 100% for short periods. Traffic patterns, of course, can be very different. How is the network prepared for such a peaky, if I may coin the phrase, a peaky preparation and presentation of the traffic? Gianni.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. As I said during my presentation, we are staffing-wise ready to tackle 100% of 2019 traffic. And anyway, that is our job. So, I mean, the job in the ops room is just whatever it happens, we are ready to tackle it. Although we don't have a strategic plan, as I said before, we have a wide set of scenarios and wide set of ATFM mitigation measures that can be used ad hoc, whatever is the load, either in an en route sector or at a specific airport. And that's our job as network manager in the NMOC. As I said before, it's not only granting safety, applying regulations, so giving delays, but mainly also with the using a number of techniques that are well tested and well used in the last 15 years, I would say, that are quite important, and they will reach the scope that and the question that you are doing. We will tackle it with the ITFM tool, mitigation tool that is used in the ops room normally.
Thank you, Gianni. Chris, from a post-ops perspective and a data perspective, how are we going to deal with feeding back on the peaky traffic? How are we going to cope with that little element of uncertainty, perhaps towards the far look of the seasonal rolling knob?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think one of the things that we would normally be doing during the summer as part of the old summer coordination cell, which has now evolved into our weekly end-up conference, we were looking very closely post-operatively at the traffic, and of course also at the configurations that were on offer, the sectors, the number of sectors that were available. And I think that's something that it becomes even more important during these particular periods. So we will be doing that. We'll be analysing exactly what was available and whether that was sufficient, and feeding that back through the end-up process, but also directly with the FMPs. I think just to take a little bit of what Gianni was saying as well, we also, we're looking much more, I think, this summer at regulations that are less of blunt instruments and much more of the sharper cherry pick type regulations, and I think they're much more suited for those kinds of peaks. But again, from an analytical point of view, we'll be analysing closely with our operations staff and colleagues to see which are the best methods to use, best tools to use in any particular circumstance. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. And Bob Graham, I see your hand is raised. Over to you.
Yes, maybe just to make a point here, and referring back to the presentation made by Chloe and Francine, one of the big challenges has been airports who have been hit severely by the lack of cash flow during this period. And it looks like there's sort of two things to think about. One is those airports that have been very, very proactive and able to hold staff either on furlough or on standby. And then unfortunately, those airports that have had to let staff go. And I think that's probably going to be a determining factor. Every week we make a poll of airports and we check their data, and they're showing that if the traffic increases, they will be able to handle it. But of course, the reality of lack of staff at some stage could actually pose some problems. And I think that's the level of uncertainty we will look at as we go forward. As Lisbon has said, that they've prepared and they're anticipating it. But as I say, I think there'll be some airports that have great challenges when the traffic increases.
Thanks, Bob. And Rui, I see that you've joined us with the microphone now hopefully sorted. Is there anything you'd like to add from the Lisbon perspective with regard to dealing with these peaks or these unforecast bottlenecks at all?
Yes, good afternoon. I would like to add that all the entities and all the companies in the airport reduced their staff. Our biggest challenge now is to cope with less staff in all the entities, with some peaks that we have during the day. At the moment is not the case, but we had the situation on Sunday morning with most of the traffic during the first hours of the day, and then the rest of the day without traffic. So when we talk about 70% or 75% in average, we are not looking at the real picture. That is when we'll have real peaks that are almost on the 100% of 2019. So this is the big problem. I saw in the panel that there was another question about the situation of having information about slots for the summer. This is really important. No, we need to have a good forecast. We need to have planning. Otherwise, it's more difficult to cope. Even because we need to restart the operations from some entities, putting again stuff on the field, and for that we need to know what will be the demand in a more accurate way.
Thank you, Rui. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A panel. There's still time if you wish to submit any more questions, but there's a couple I think which are fairly straightforward. We can answer fairly quickly. Firstly, from the infamous anonymous attendee, how is the NOP briefing get known to ANSPs and FMPs? Are FMPs involved in the process? Very briefly, yes, of course. ANSPs, airports, airlines, all involved in the process from the seasonal rolling NOP all the way through to the pre-tactical briefings that get launched through the NOP. All stakeholders are involved in the process building into that briefing. So if you need any more information, please do get hold of us offline and we'll be pleased to help a bit more. There's another question. Ask for filing of flight plans 4 hours in advance. Will you publish this officially by changing the limits for flight plan filing currently listed in the documents? No, it is a request. The earlier we have the up-to-date information on what is being planned in the tactical phase, the better, of course, the information we can provide to the whole network. So no, we won't be officially changing any documentation about it, but the predictability that we get in the tactical phase is greatly enhanced by even just an hour and a half earlier of filing that final flight plan when it is known. Unless any of my colleagues wish to jump in on that point, I'll close that question down. And move on to RAD suspensions. So it's a question from Michael Kuhn, following Gianni, your comments around the RAD suspension trial. Could you outline a bit more about the RAD suspension trial and what's the plan? And that comes from, as I say, Michael at Edelweiss Air Zurich.
Okay, so Michael, again, I mentioned the dynamic RAD trial. This was a proposal done from DSNA last year at ODSG. And that we welcome on board, of course, because it's something that we would like to do since many years. Now there is a chance that done in collaboration with the operational planning unit and the military representatives, that we will suspend in some way the RAD restriction on request of the ANSP. This is something already ongoing with the weather trial last year. So we'd like to expand that in the pre-tactical day, the day before operation, when an NSP says, okay, we have this RAD restriction that will not be used anymore, there is not much traffic tomorrow, can we desuspend it? So we will do that, associating the suspension of the RAD restriction with the AUP, UUP process. Of course, it will be a trial. We will have 2 or 3 NSPs volunteering to participate, one of which will be DSNA indeed. And if you want to know more in details, we have an agenda item of 20 minutes, half an hour, where we go into the details at the next ODSG on the 18th of February.
Thank you, Gianni. I hope that answers the question. There's a few minutes left, so I'd just like to turn to the panelists, if I may, and just ask for some comments and views with regard to sustainability in the ops environment and in the network, because although we're obviously all desperate to see aviation return, this is the opportunity to build back better with regard to sustainability. So if I may turn to Chloe and your colleagues, from your perspective, ANA Airports, Lisbon Airport, how are you building back better with regard to sustainability?
Well, may I, Chloe, or?
Sure, Francine. I think that we agree.
Okay, we've been building the sustainability among this ecosystem for years. We coordinate strategic levels and operational levels with our stakeholders. We've been preparing our operation. We will be restarting the briefings we had. and we coordinate all the time. I mentioned the pre-ops and the post-ops analysis that we provide them with. The post-op not yet, to be more accurate. And we are working on having an IAOP to include the landside processes, so to bring more awareness on the operational processes. That's why we are building some resistance and trying to grant sustainability. If you want to add, please add something more, Chloe.
Just to emphasize even more what Francis is saying, I think it's almost a contradiction, but during this phase we have built more sustainability than ever in the last months, because there was an absolute necessity to have this communication between the stakeholders, and we really hope that the spirit of cooperating, because in adverse circumstances you have to cooperate and to share information, is going to be extended on the long term, including with all stakeholders, including with NAV, the ANSP, because this is how we manage to tackle adversity.
Thank you. Bob, did you want to add anything before I turn to the colleagues in the room?
I think one of the issues we're going to have, and I can't answer the question, I'm afraid, but I think one of the issues we're going to have, if we look at it from the environmental sustainability perspective, is people have not had the noise and the nuisance of the airports over this period of time. I'm just looking at the airport perspective. And when that starts to come back, then this could mean that it builds on the environmental agenda, which is much wider. So I think we really need to be aware of it. And I would certainly support what Chloe is saying. One of the biggest things that has happened because of the crisis is that airport stakeholders and so on have to talk to each other an awful lot more. This dialogue is absolutely critical for many things. If you want to evolve your airport, build your traffic, it really needs to have a sustainability agenda behind that. And that means that all stakeholders are on board. So the dialogue has been happening. The opportunity is to keep that dialogue moving forward.
Thank you. Gianni, I'll turn to you last with regard to some final bullet points for sustainability from the ops perspective in NM. But Chris, from your perspective, how are we building back better with regard to sustainability?
Yeah, I think it is extremely important. I think there's no doubt about that. And I think from a strategic perspective, I think some of the work that's being done in airspace restructuring is going to be key to ensure that the best routes are available. I think we also need within our operations to improve the rerouting availabilities that we have, and we were doing that both in the next software release and the release afterwards, where we improve our group rerouting tool. We're looking at ways of avoiding things like yo-yo flights and sharp turn flights. All of these give much better profiles for aircraft, and as a result then less fuel burn, etc., etc. I think also the other things that are important is with predictability. I think when you can improve the predictability, when you can reduce the volatility, so therefore you need fewer regulations, less delay, all of those things contribute to less fuel burn and therefore more sustainability. But really, the other thing that I think we want to try and introduce from our operational analysis, which we've not been able to do as yet, is to really try and learn what our procedures, learning through use of data, through analyzing what our procedures actually do in terms of environmental impact, as well as some of our other KPIs, to see if we can actually improve the way we do the work within the ops room. And with that, I'll hand over to Gianni.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, I don't have much to add, because again, the network manager has to be able to put the customers, the stakeholders, in the best possible conditions. And Chris mentioned the flight efficiency. It is quite obvious that in order to pump less CO2 in the atmosphere, we have to offer shorter routes, the free route airspace, and all that stuff. Regarding specifically NMOC, my translation of sustainability is that we can do more with less cost. And we were handling until 3 or 4 years ago, 2,000 phone calls per day coming from the airspace user and the NSP into the ops room. And that was the real limit, because the number of people, we cannot increase the number of people in the ops room because of course associated cost. So now since a couple of years, we moved to electronically to the IDAP that Chris mentioned before. And now we have very few phone calls and we can handle 3,200 requests coming only from the airspace users in one day without any problem. So this is my answer to sustainability in the NMOC. And then for you, for the rest, I hand over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Gianni. I noticed the time we're almost completed in our slot. There is, however, one outstanding question, which is fair probably to pass, Rui, to you. It is as follows. Airports are dependent on the capacity and within the capacity of network airlines. At this time, with a very low operation, we continue to have peaks. What can be done to avoid these spikes with such low operations at an airport? Rui.
Yes, I believe we should be prepared. To be prepared, we need to have that information in advance. We need to coordinate with all stakeholders and handling agents, airlines, NATS, air navigation, and then we need to adapt to the reality that now is completely different every day, every hour. So we need to be more flexible. I think this is the solution, the working together and be more flexible to adapt to the situation that every hour, every day changes.
Thank you, Rui. All I would say is that just before I close, I think you've made some really excellent points there with regard to we must be prepared, we must coordinate amongst ourselves, we must be flexible and we must adapt. And that really does summarize the discussion that we've had in the last half hour and of course the presentations that we have seen. It remains for me to extend the thanks of those of us here at Eurocontrol Network Manager to everyone online. We had over 370 participants, plus those streaming live and those in the Europa room here today. So thank you to those attending, for those presenting, and especially not only to my colleagues here in the Network Manager and from the division, Gianni, Bob and Chris, but also and most especially my profuse thanks to Rui, Francine and Chloe from ANA Portugal. Thanks to you for your time and for your effort and your support. As for everyone else, please don't forget, this is just day 3 of the Network Manager User Week here at Eurocontrol. Thank you for participating. Do join again tomorrow, 1400 CET, for the session being led by my colleague Enrico and Peter at the Tech Division, Digital Transformation at NM. And please also note, as you leave, there will be a short survey for you to provide your feedback, which is really critical so that we can help each other build on this event this week to make it better next time. My thanks to ANA Portugal, my thanks to my colleagues for presenting. Please take care, keep safe, and we see you soon.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you from Portugal.
For letting us talk.
Thank
you very much.